Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for several years. Thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the logos here at our show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the Halloween and horror genre, but does amazing, and I mean amazing, commission pieces of any sort. So tonight we welcome back Maxim Furek, who's going to be talking about his book, Flying Saucer Esoteric, The Altered States of Ufology. And this is going to be one of those books, not typical book, nothing like that. It's going to be along the lines of going back in time. Yes, they have been here way back into our history and beyond. We're not the first kick at the can. So I think, the more people realize that how intertwined everything is, the easier it takes, or the easier it is to just digest it all. And I know it gets confusing. I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but let's examine this aspect of things. So without further ado, Maxim Furek. Hello.
Hello, Rochelle. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Welcome back.
I know, and back and back and back. Yeah, this is getting a little redundant, right?
I know you're getting frequent flyer points now.
Yes, I am. Well, great. Okay.
I know. I love it. I've been very excited to talk about this. Mind you, I just go through the list of your books, and I'm excited about all of our conversations.
Yeah. No, I'm passionate and excited about all of them. It's just so much fun to dabble in the paranormal, the supernatural, and Flying Saucer Esoteric is a special book to me. I helped design the cover. And you can see the saucers there. You see the
it's great.
And you can see in Roman numeral letters there.
Yes.
There's the XCV11, which is 97, and that's a cryptic little code, which is kind of interesting. But when I wrote the book, I was just consumed with this, I don't know, OCD, whatever, call it what you will. But yeah. I was writing and researching morning, noon, and night. It took me, and I decided I was going to see what I could do in 100 days. And if I was getting too close to burnout, I was going to pull back and do something else. But I finished the book in 97 days. But it was almost like microdosing. I mean, I wasn't microdosing on any hallucinogens, but I mean, I was in a state where I was really it flowed through me. It was great. I mean, I love it. I mean, that was my, something that I did. And anyway, as an author, a lot of times as fellow authors discuss the creative process. And for me, this thing was something special because it just shows what you can do when you're attuned to it, when you allow those energies to go through you. And again, we're talking about the creative process.
Yes.
And so anyway, this Flying Saucer Esoteric is special to me, not only for the content, but just for, how I was able to go and pull it off and put it together. So,
yes. Well, that's what Wayne says as an author. He goes, it just moves through you.
Exactly. And there's and you don't wait for that moment to strike. I mean, you write all the time. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, like I do these little, I call them cutouts, but I have
Yeah.
all these little articles, paragraphs that I go and expand on and make really, really, really good, and then add them to the manuscript, and that's what you do, and that just keeps me fresh. And
Yeah.
I hope that the magic continues, because I mean, I've been extremely prolific, and I mean, I'm my biggest fan. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope this continues, because it's just been a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
it's 9 years I've been in this paranormal realm, for 9 years, since I published the Shepton mythology. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much how this came about. And
And you've really, I mean, you've really shown what most of us in the field know, is that everything is connected. It's all connected in one form or another. And I mean, you've touched on many aspects of what I call, high strangeness. You've really touched
mhm,
on all of it, the cryptids and hauntings
mhm.
and UFOs. What made you want to write this book specifically? Because I mean, you could have written it in any way, but you decided to take the esoteric approach.
Yeah. I remember I was reading a book, and it's in in the introduction to Flying Saucer Esoteric. But I was reading this book, and I just couldn't get into it. And it wasn't that the book wasn't good and the author
Mm,
wasn't good, but it was me. And I had been thinking about flying saucers, and I called some friends of mine, and who had collections of these of 50,
mhm,
40, 50s and 60s saucer books. And so I borrowed a bunch of them, started to read, started to take notes,
mm.
and that's what it was. But it was just a calling, a mission, I don't know. It was more than just a project. But
Mhm,
I'm so glad to have that completed book in my library, along with the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot and Coleridge Hoodoo and all the others. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, you were saying earlier, yeah, hi Sherry. But I
Everybody's
think I
chiming in. Don't mind me.
yeah, but I think with Flying Saucer Esoteric, you would, an average reader would open it up to 1947 to take a look at the Roswell crash, or Kenneth Arnold,
Mhm,
and using that as a starting point, uh, the reader would see that there was a lot happening before and a lot happening after.
mhm.
1947 was not the beginning of anything. It was just an anomaly with Kenneth Arnold and with the Roswell crash. I mean, well, more than an anomaly, but
Mhm.
became a mythology. But
Yeah.
when you take a look at uh, the people that have looked into the sky and seen things,
Mhm.
it's been happening forever.
Yeah.
And did those ancients know what they were looking at? Well, remember the drone hysteria of 2024, when in Halloween over in New Jersey, we started to see all these drones.
Mhm.
Didn't quite know what they were.
Mhm.
The Our American political parties could not successfully articulate what we were looking at. They were not able to go and quell or dissipate any of that fear. But that was
Mhm.
2024. In 2023, we had the Chinese weather balloons, big as a bus, flying all over, Alaska or
Yeah.
Canada and the
Yes.
United States. And to this day, we've never had an explanation for what that was, what it represented, et cetera, et cetera. So again, not being kept in the dark is nothing new. It's nothing. This has been going on for a long time. And they've had congressional
Mm,
UFO hearings in 2023, 2024, and this year. And
mhm,
again, the end result is all the same. I mean, I'm not any further ahead in the game than I was before they had these hearings, and I
mhm.
have uh, uh, my own theory for what that is and why that is. And I think in that
Mm,
case, I'm sort of aligned with Marco Rubio, and certainly not politically, but at least with his flying saucer
mm.
philosophy, his take. So, but
Well, have you
you know,
seen The Age of Disclosure, the
I
new
haven't
film?
seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I was looking. I think it was costing a whole bunch of money. I was going to watch it on TV, and my wife said it's too much, so we're going to
Oh,
wait.
yeah, it's crazy. Well, it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was out, and I think it was Yeah, it's getting a lot of mixed reviews because it's all, political figures and such and whistleblowers who are coming
Yeah,
to be put on the record. But then you've got Dr. Stephen Greer, who's like, no, it's just showing a really negative side
yeah.
to extraterrestrials and disclosure. And he's just trying to deter people from it, so to speak, because he doesn't agree that that it's a terrifying connection, so to speak. I
Yeah,
think he kind of goes up and down with it, but
yeah. Well, Stephen Greer, he's into that kumbaya thing. He wants us
yeah.
to get together and do that
Oh,
CE5 event and lock
yeah,
arms
yeah, a lot of
and
people are.
communicate with
Yeah.
the Big Brother, with the
Mhm.
aliens, and that's his approach,
Mhm.
which he called for that in this year in
Mhm.
2025. But I think that with the age of disclosure, and again, I haven't seen it, but I read about it. But Marco Rubio was talking about the need to know,
Mm.
and a lot of these things that we have in the government, in the military, are on a need to know basis,
And we
and
don't need to know.
we
Sorry.
do not need to know. We do not
Right?
need to know. So
Yeah.
and look at all those congressional people that were part of this thing, that we're going to go and have the government
Mm.
show us what they knew, tell us, let's have some transparency, and that hasn't happened. I mean, in
Mhm.
July of 2023, it was David Grush who
Mhm.
said that he knows where the bodies are. The non-human, what did he call them? The non-human uh, bionics or whatever. I
Mhm.
forget it was the first time I had ever heard that term, but it was
Biologics?
biologics. Yeah,
Yeah.
non-human biologics.
Mm.
And then he knew where the crashed craft were, and he said he would share that information with the right people because it was classified. Well, classified information is like the lowest in the totem pole. I mean, there's secret and top secret, and there's ones up there that are so high that I don't even know what they mean. But
Mm.
that's the way that works. And my theory is this: there's there's we'll never get to the truth of this through these congressional hearings because we don't have the need to know, because
Mhm.
whoever is operating this, and it's not the CIA, and it's not the hi Kurt, it's not the FBI, but it's clandestine black organizations, organizations that are being funded through the Defense Department. And if you could track that money trail, you could probably find out
Mhm.
where it's going. But those are the people that have this information and are keeping it, maybe
Mhm.
for national security. I think probably United States, Russia, China,
Mhm.
North Korea, maybe Iran are probably doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Probably a lot of the countries.
That's what
Uh,
Dolly says. I don't think it'll happen till they can convince you that it's a national security danger.
yeah, I think you're right. And
Yeah.
so I don't think that even if Donald Trump said, I want to know what's happening with the flying saucers, I don't think that he would be able to get to the
Some people feel that if disclosure happens, he would be the president to do it.
right. Correct.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah.
I was at a conference a couple years ago. One of the guys sitting in the seat next to me worked for remote viewing. He was from
Mhm.
San Francisco. He worked for remote viewing, and I wanted to pick his brain and find out what he did and all this, and he wouldn't say anything. But I
Mhm.
believe that the government, at least the American government, has all kinds of organizations that are, I guess, secret organizations that are looking into things like remote viewing and
Yes.
time travel and astral projection and mind control and whatever
Mhm.
else is there,
Mhm.
just to see if it would give us an edge. And it's not just us, it's a lot of other countries doing the same thing. So, I think there's a lot going on. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of talk about disclosure and transparency, but I
Mm.
contend that at this point, right, it's only talk.
Mhm. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Three Eye Atlas?
Oh yeah. Well, that's the other thing, so
'Cause
all of a
that
sudden,
that's the big news right now, right?
yeah, well, all of a sudden there was this thing that I thought it was an asteroid, but it was been identified called a meteorite. But anyway,
Yeah.
that A1, I guess it was A1 Atlas,
Yeah.
was humongous,
3-1 Atlas. Yeah.
or 3-1 Atlas,
Yeah.
and it was really big and it was fast, and they saw some blue tails there, and they thought it might have been carbon dioxide. It
Mm-hmm.
was blue, and it was the guy from Harvard, the Levi, Dr. Loeb, Avi
Yeah.
Loeb,
Oh, we
who
love. Yeah.
thought that it might have been controlled with by intelligent forces. But he said the same thing back in 2017 with the Oumuamua, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
So
tongue
there
twister,
were
but I know what you mean.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there were other meteorites in 2017,
Mm.
or asteroids, 2017 and 2019 that came outside. As far as I know, they came outside of our solar system and they came through, and that's interesting because we look at it. We try to look at the colors and everything, try to figure out what the composition is because it's alien, and that's always interesting, and that can add to our body of knowledge. But it
Yeah.
was. It was
Yeah.
A.V. Loeb who claimed that it was a spacecraft. He thought that it was firing its thrusters, and that's what we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, he has a habit of doing this, and but that's okay. He's a
Yeah.
proponent of extraterrestrial intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of the loudest voices of that. But with this last one, I think it started to break apart. So it wasn't following the pattern that Dr. Loeb said, just this huge, fast thing moving without any particles in its trail. So,
Mm-hmm.
which meant it wasn't breaking apart. It was a solid thing. But again, there was a little bit of concern, a little bit of excitement, not
Mm.
unlike what happened in 2024 with the drones over New Jersey and every place else. Again, there's a lot of conjecture, a lot of
A
people.
lot of black ops too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just saying.
So I think one of the last things I heard was that NASA said that no, it's not a guided craft, but that it
No.
was an object from outside our solar system. So
Mhm.
anyway, it was exciting, and it was one of the top paranormal stories of 2025.
Mhm.
And I
Still
think
is
maybe
because they're saying this thing's supposed to do something special by the end of the month. Like
okay.
people are on pins and needles just waiting to see, what's going to happen with it. And I personally think it's just going to pass on by.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So I remember, if you get
yeah.
too wrapped up in this, remember what happened in I think it was San Diego when the Haley Bopp comet, I believe it was,
Yeah.
that's what it's called, came by. People got really freaked out. They
Mhm.
hooked up with the cult, and there was this ritualistic suicide.
Mhm.
Again,
Yeah.
people that are afraid, they act like lemmings. They follow the leader, and sometimes this leads to some
Mhm.
bad places. And
Yeah.
with the cults, and this is a good example of that. The cult,
Mhm.
what happened there, it was like a science fiction religious cult.
Mm.
They all shave their heads, and they all
Mhm.
looked androgynous, and
Yeah.
but
I'll just waiting just to beam us up. you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
but
well,
I mean, for everybody, just be level-headed, get a
mhm.
second opinion,
Mhm.
use rational thinking. Don't rely on other people or groups to go and think for you.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
Y2K
That
phenomenon,
was
that was
another big one.
a great one that we thought that everything was going to come to an end, that
Yeah.
all communication, transportation, etc.
Mm.
And I have a great story. We were on our way to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, in 2000 when all that stuff was supposed to happen. And it's
Right.
just a long, crazy coincidence that I was going there. But
Mm.
nothing happened. They thought the computers would not be able to configure all those zeros, and it would
Right.
just explode or whatever. But but the techies got in there. They
Mhm.
figured it out. They
Mhm.
played with their computers and they made them work. So
Mhm.
that was man working with computers. That was
Yes.
not
Yes.
like now. I think there's a lot of fear with AI
I
and
was
what.
just gonna go there with you. Look at you being in my head and all, Maxim.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
it's technology, and it's
Yes.
it's frightening, and and again, we're just saying the beginning of it. And with as a writer, as an author,
Mm.
who prides himself in his work and the way I write and all that. I know a bunch of people that are using AI to write their stuff, and that just, it's disheartening. It's
Mm.
sickening. It's not who we are. I mean,
Hmm.
that I don't know. I don't like to even think about that because it's not a good thing. So.
No, no, but that I think is just, the big machine that keeps people, if you're in fear, then you like to think that the powers that be are doing right by you and they're caring for you and they're going to take care of things.
Hmm.
And if I don't know,
Yeah.
the conflict makes money
Yeah.
and
And
it funds a lot of big projects, and I think we just have to look at the fact that let the creator take care of you, let the universe take care of you, let's let it
hmm
as it always has. What will be. You're not going to really be able to change a whole lot,
hmm
unfortunately.
hmm
At least this comet Apophis is going to be a problem in 3032. Well, thank God I won't be here in 3032, but I feel for everybody who is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay.
And Kurt says real science and technology goes outside of the public eye. Very, very intelligent minds working out there unknown to most people. 100%.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
hmm
So, okay, flying saucer esoteric.
hmm
Want to go back in time and
Yeah.
start getting into this? You mentioned the Roman numeral 97.
Yeah.
Why would you put that on the book cover? What's the relevance to it?
Yeah. That was my experiment. It was my sort of like my microdosing experiment. How much could I write in 100 days? I wanted to go and see if I could complete a book in 100 days, and if I was going to just get too close to the edge, I was going to just pull back and stop. I finished the book in 97 days, but that was going morning, noon, and night. That was being driven, but I was in the groove. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. But again, with boundaries, with
Hmm.
parameters, not,
Hmm.
realizing that this could kill you. And I don't advise anybody to do that, but I
Hmm.
wanted to do it as a challenge, and I did it. So 97 days. I think it's a great book. I got it done.
Yeah.
Proofread and all the other stuff. And but looking at that book, and
Yeah.
one thing that's interesting, talking about fear, some of the people that spoke out against church and state
Hmm.
were castigated for that. And probably the biggest name was Copernicus, who said that the earth revolved around the sun. And the church and state said no, because we're made in the image of God, we're God-like, so the earth has to be at the center of everything. So when
Mm.
Copernicus was too old to be punished for what he did, even though his theory was banned and censored. But people
Mm.
like Galileo was put on house arrest for believing in the same thing, and Bruno was burned at the stake as a heretic. Again, these were people that went against the church and state. And even with with flying saucers or UAPs today, there's government workers that are afraid to come forward and share what they know, well, for a lot of reasons. One is because of the fear of criticism and
Mm.
looking like a fool. The other thing, if you lose your government job, you're talking about good money and benefits and all this other stuff, and to
Mhm.
throw that away after, say, 20 years or 25 years is really
Mm.
asking for a whole lot, for a person who is raising a family and supporting a family. So
Mm.
so fear drives the train. H.P. Lovecraft was the one that says that fear is the most basic, most elemental emotion, and fear of the unknown
Mhm.
is the most powerful of emotions, just
Mhm.
because that's what rings our bell. That's what gets us scared. What's around the corner, with,
Yes.
with Atlas, with, AI, with whatever. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
so that's pretty much how we all uh, work as human beings. That's how we respond. And
Mhm.
but there's ways to conquer that fear and not to allow that fear to consume us. And I think that's what we need to do, especially in these days that are just so, boy, dramatic and just chaotic and everything else. So I think we need to go and
Mhm.
just be the captain of our own ship.
Well, I think it's important because I think when it comes to this topic, there's just been a whole lot of, hysteria and misinformation. You make mention to Richard Sharp Shaver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and mass hysteria. What's up with that?
Well, Richard and I were both born in the same place. It's Berwick, Pennsylvania, in
Yeah.
northeastern Pennsylvania. It's coal country. But Shaver was wanted by the FBI for creating conjuring the UFO hysteria, and
Hmm.
he had the Shaver mysteries. He hooked up with Ray Palmer, rap, and
Yeah.
Ray was a publisher for amazing stories. And he wrote this thing. He said that he was captured by these evil robots. Shaver did,
Ah,
and it was a crazy story. But Ray, and it was thrown into the trash. This guy named Brown, but Ray Palmer fished it out of the trash can, looked at it, and rewrote it as the excuse me, as the Shaver mystery, and that became such a big thing. People believed what Richard Sharp Shaver was saying. Now,
mm,
he claimed that uh, confined by these Deros, these evil robots, in
mm,
subterranean caves.
mhm,
But what happened was Ray Palmer uh, admitted that he was in a mental institution in Michigan, and he was being treated probably for schizophrenia and
mm.
probably was given shock treatment. I think a lot of the stories that Richard Sharpshaver wrote, it seems to me that somebody who was being tortured like that, and I think that they probably gave people. Well, let me ask you this: do you have an idea why they gave people shock treatment back there instead of the meds?
Yeah, make you forget. That'll do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, that's one thing, one reason. The other
Mhm.
one was that it's cheaper. It was cheaper than the psychotropic medications like Meloril, Thorazine, whatever other zombie drugs they had that were so toxic.
Mhm.
We're hearing about it today, but
Yes.
that tardive dyskinesia is an uncontrollable response from taking those medications. Now, Thorazine is a good drug short term, for
Mm,
people that are dealing with certain issues, but long term, it gives you the tardive dyskinesia, which could be salivation, the shaking, just a whole lot of
mhm.
symptoms that don't go away. And I
Right.
know they have meds for that now because you see it on TV,
Mhm.
you know. But anyway, that was,
It's big business now. May not have been as big a business back then.
yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, when they retired, Richard Sharpshaver and Ray Palmer lived in Wisconsin, real close to each other, and they were friends, even though Ray outed him, and gave away a story that he was, in a mental institution. And but anyway, it's just an interesting
Mhm.
story, and I like the story because uh, Richard Sharpshaver is from my hometown, and when I talk about him, a lot of the folks back home have never heard of him, but he's the most interesting character to ever come out of Berwick. So, so,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, at least we know where that connection comes
Yeah,
from.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And the FBI did have a dossier on Richard Sharpshaver and Ray Palmer. So, just
mm,
because they were causing a ruckus there with the saucers, they said the saucers are coming from these caves deep within the earth. So that was their take.
that was the thing. Yeah. All right. And you've written extensively about George Adamski and his flying saucers.
Yeah, I like George Adamski. He was the professor, and
Yes.
he was Polish American. He had, I think it was a third grade education. So when he came,
Mm,
and he was a good looking dude. He was a tall guy, blonde hair, swept back hair, and all this.
mm,
But he spoke broken English. And when he did his presentations, they were really choppy and almost like just comical, because he
mm,
wasn't that articulate. He wasn't that good. But he had all these people that surrounded him that worked on his books that helped him. He was able to go and convince them to help him.
mhm,
The FBI also had a file on George Adamski, wondering what was up with him. What was he doing? What was the control? Like a Swangali. What kind of control did he have over these people? But
mm,
the women loved him, and they wrote his books and did his typing for him and everything. He was the one that told people that he had gone to Saturn for a planetary convention. He knew aliens from Venus and Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
He took pictures of flying saucers that were actually light bulbs, General Electric light bulbs, and also these egg incubators, those things that you would use for chickens, little chicks, to keep them warm when they were. And he used that as his, what he said was flying saucers, and people believed him, but they were very amateurish, very pedestrian, very just hoaxy. I mean, for anybody, but people believed him. He had his coterie of people. But here's the thing. I mean, George Adamski was one of the biggest flying saucer hoaxers or con artists, in history. But what he did was he said that the Space Brothers were altruistic and they're going to help us and they're going to save us. And he said this right after we had dropped those bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945. And we were concerned because I think people started to realize that man had the power to destroy the planet. And if we didn't think this out. So we were scared. We all were scared. And Adamski was the one that says, wait a second here, we have help. The Space Brothers are going to help us with this and give us information and give us, help us with their advice and their wisdom. So he was one of the first earliest proponents of New Ageism. And you can't discount George Adamski for what his contributions, because, this I mean, even though those photographs were just so hokey, I mean, they're still being used to represent flying saucers today. So Adamski, man, whatever he did was, I mean, it's pretty, there needs to be a motion picture, a black and white motion picture, and George Adamski, maybe that's a project we can do.
Yeah.
You shoot it, I'll do the screenwriting. But I mean, he deserves that because he's just probably one of the most important luminaries in ufology.
Created a movement.
He really did, yeah. I mean, he had his followers, he had his distractors, but still, I mean, they're and there's been so many books written about him. It's just pretty amazing too. So he's not just one and done. I mean, he had 3 books that he published, but had some pretty interesting people in his corner. So yeah, George Adamski, pretty interesting guy.
Well, yeah, he definitely left his mark. Love it. I mean, I suppose everything has its place. You think back then, I mean, you listen to the old radio programs, like The Day the Earth Stood Still, that sort of a thing, where they would just orate these tales and people would just sit by the radio and be completely enthralled with it. And he just seemed to, kind of bring that era back a little bit and just get you, thinking about the little green men from Mars and these saucers. Like, it's just, it was a different era. Like, it's just
it followed in the wake of Kenneth Arnold and Roswell.
Yeah.
And everybody was just captivated by that. I mean, the U.S. Air Force captures flying disc. Okay, so we have the hysteria. Then the next day, I think it was maybe the same day, they had another release saying that no, it was a weather balloon. But still, we were caught up in this hysteria. I mean, and there were so many things that happened around that time. And then George Adamski came, a couple of years around that time and emerged as one of the proponents of, the flying saucer era, and helped to articulate that and, put his own spin on it. So, he was an ambassador. He gets his dues.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that whole thing. They make a program, The Shadow Knows. It was a great radio program.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You make mention specifically, I mean, the Nimitz, of course, has had. I mean, it had. I don't know what it is about the Nimitz, but everything it has all the best stuff. back in the 80s, you mentioned, back in 2004, I think the owner of our station, Joe, I think he was on it in 2004. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
So it around there. Anyway, he's under like an NDA, but he did break some information on that, and some which wasn't widely known. It wasn't put out there, but it's had several encounters, the Nimitz.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it specifically about,
Well,
2004 that
yeah, well,
stuck with you?
2000, I think 2004 in ufology was sort of the equivalent of, what was it, 1967, the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film. I mean,
Yes.
sort of, for a lot of us, that's
Yes.
the holy grail,
Mhm.
indisputable proof that there's
Still
something
to
there.
this day.
To
Yeah.
this day, yeah, and they've tried to,
Mhm.
they've analyzed it like the Zapruder film, Kennedy
Yes.
assassination, and slowed it up, sped it up, digitized it. I mean, look at it from every angle, but it
Mhm.
seems to be a a creature, a cryptid,
Mhm.
that, and again, only 58 seconds of this of Patty walking, turning around, looking at Roger Patterson
Mhm.
and looking back and going. So it was, I mean, 58 seconds.
All you needed.
Yeah, yeah. And we've always, we've always had this discussion that if you were going to hoax it,
Mhm.
something like that, wouldn't you make it maybe a little bit longer than 58 seconds? I mean, I guess you would. I mean, I guess I would. I would.
Sometimes
No,
too much information is too much information.
yeah. Well, not that let me retract that. I would not
Yeah.
attempt a hoax. So I'm not going
Yeah.
to, let's
Oh,
not go
yeah.
there. Let's not go
Many
there.
have tried. It's not a
Yeah.
thing. Nope.
Yeah, no, you can't debunk Patty. But anyway, so that was 1967, and
Yes.
then in 2004, the Nimitz off the coast of uh, San Diego saw this object. Now the Pentagon stopped calling them UFOs, and they decided to call them UAPs,
Mhm.
unidentified um,
Aerial phenomena.
aerial phenomenon.
Mhm.
And so this one there with the Nimitz, it had the shape. The Navy pilots were able to go and record, on their video cameras. This thing, it was like a Tic Tac candy,
Hmm.
and it was shaped like that. And you could. I remember there's been so many videos where you could see that little box there where it's going
Mm.
back and forth. Well, it hovered, and then it went under the water,
Mhm.
and then they started to say it wasn't UAP, it wasn't unidentified aerial phenomenon, but was unidentified anomalous phenomenon. And so we're all getting our heads spun around, with the
Mhm.
terminology. But
Mhm.
that seemed to be the one that everybody focused on because it just seemed to be so relevant and realistic, and the one that so many people talked about. So I think there's something there. I mean, more so with the 2004 Nimitz UAP,
Mhm.
and I think that there's a lot of validity there. Now, again,
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody's been able to go and do anything with the photo, but with these UAPs, we're talking about 3% of these things we see, of all the things we see, 3% are anomalous. We don't know if they're ours,
Mhm.
somebody else's, or if they're from outer space or from another dimension. We don't know,
Mm.
but again, out of the 98%, or 97%, we know what they are. They could be temperature inversion, there could be lights, it could be mass hallucinations, it could be a lot of things. I mean, and and that's fascinating as well, the other stuff. But
Mhm.
to know that 3% of what we're looking at is anomalous, and that is reason to go and take a look at that. I remember the Earth versus the Flying Saucers. I like to get on YouTube and look at these black and white
Yeah.
50s sci-fi things. And
Yeah.
with Earth versus the Flying Saucer, that was Roy Harryhausen, or Ray Harryhausen. He did the stop motion and animations, with
Mm.
all his monsters. But the beginning of that, the scientist comes out and is talking about life on other planets and all this, and he said that 3% of what we see is unknown. So again, that was back in '57, and they're saying the same thing today,
Mhm.
3%. So
Mhm.
that number hasn't gone away. Um, we say the same thing in demonology, that with the Catholic Church, when they do their rite of exorcism, they have to make sure that the people that they're dealing with are actually possessed and not mentally ill. And they claim that 2% of the people that they deal with are actually possessed. 2%. So there's 2% for demonology, 3% for for ufology, no percentiles for Sasquatch or cryptids that I've heard of. But it's interesting just to compare, some of those genres with each other just to see what's going on. So I think that's valid. But the Nimitz is I don't know. I mean, have you heard anything beyond that? Just that they had a video, and the Navy
Of the Tic
pilots,
Tac, absolutely.
tried to catch up to it and couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not the first encounter the Nimitz has had. It certainly wasn't the last. You can go find one in the 80s, back to the 80s. Hey, Joe and I, my producer, who served on the Nimitz, we included it in one of the shows that we did that was called The Gray Zone Uncensored. And, and he talked a little bit about his what they experienced when he served on the Nimitz was something completely outside of those two events. And I mean, not my information to share, but what I could say is this: something along the lines of a craft did land on the Nimitz.
Oh, wow.
So but I mean, you'd have to almost go back and maybe he'll tell about it again sometime, because there was more detail to it than that. But again, that's his story to tell. I don't do it justice by talking about it secondhand. But it was definitely, when he relayed it, it's because his NDA came due. And I think it was like a 30-year NDA.
Yeah.
And he was able to say something before, and I'm not sure if they got locked down again. But when he first said it, my mind went
Wow.
blue.
Wow.
Yes. So, and again, amazing to me that it often happens to the Nimitz, as I'm sure it happens to many of their other, sea vessels.
Yeah. I served. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I served aboard the USS Constellation. I'm a Vietnam vet, but I was a radarman. So we saw these things. We saw bogies that were solid, tangible. They were maneuverable. They were faster than any guided missiles we had or the Soviets had. So there was a lot of that going on. I mean, a lot of us saw them, but we were told not to talk about it. Keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
You didn't see this, and but they would be logged in the logbook. But they were pretty commonplace. And again, being a radarman, we saw them, and they were UFOs. So
you can go back to stories back to Christopher Columbus logged information about seeing something in the sky that came down and went down into the water.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how far back that goes.
I know. Yeah. I think that's great stuff.
Yeah.
And, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the Nimitz is certainly up there as far as the annals of ufology.
Yes. So. Oh yes. It's been a part of our history. You can go back and look at old religious paintings and texts that talk about UFOs. I mean, you just look at, just go into the Bible, Ezekiel's will, the Book of Enoch.
Right,
those are clearly very much, extraterrestrial in nature. I think a lot of times it might have been even the wording, like chariots, the chariots of the gods being more crafts, but depending on the time period, that's a chariot to get you around. I think a lot of it has to do with wordings, but look at some of the old religious paintings, the crucifixion of Christ. You have crafts there, there's paintings that it
really makes you wonder.
It does. Da Vinci did so many incredible things as well. People are mirroring his artwork now, kind of going, what is this? But that comes from an excursion where he went off into a cave for like 2 weeks, came back because he wasn't smart enough, right? Brilliant man. Comes back even more brilliant and starts doing all these crazy things because he disappeared for 2 weeks and came back, was kind of like, and didn't even have a recollection really of all the events that apparently had occurred to him. But he came back with all of this extra knowledge.
Yeah. There's one theory too that hallucinogens
Yes.
were responsible for a lot of the a lot of things, a lot of the so-called miracles, the burning bush, the whatever, and
Yeah.
even the one theory, is it the ape hypothesis, maybe I forget which one it is, but that man learned how to speak through ingesting the psilocybin, that
Yes.
it just opened up a certain pathway and allowed
Yes.
us to go and communicate. Uh, Maybe verbally, and but then it's just an
Hmm.
interesting theory. I don't know, but yeah, thank you for somebody just thanked me for my
Yeah, it was
service.
Janie. Yeah.
Hi,
So
Janie.
thank you
Okay.
for your service.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, people do that, then you just end up in this whole other realm.
Hmm.
See all kinds of things,
Well,
you know?
well, there's a specific receptor site in our brains for THC, tetrahydrocannabinol,
Mhm.
marijuana. And
Yeah.
you got to wonder why that is. I mean, specific to THC. I mean, it just
Hmm.
locks in there. So boom, no
Hmm.
question. So
There's a lot of natural things out there. People who go in and have ayahuasca and
yeah, okay, yeah,
different events. I mean, some people can achieve that just through doing meditation, just through DMT frequencies
yeah,
and
yeah,
things. It's fascinating. There's so much that we don't
yeah,
really
yeah,
understand,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I mean, half the fun is just trying to figure it all out.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
let's look at our connections with Bigfoot.
Uh-huh.
I think that one is that's a big one because there always seems to be, I won't say always, but many times there seems to be orbs around them when they're sighted. There seems to be even shadow beings around them when they're sighted. UFOs, crafts, these balls of light that just seem to move around down the path along with them or through the trees. Like, is there a quantum thing? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I first heard about that combination of seeing, say, a Bigfoot
Yeah.
with a flying saucer, I just thought, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not buying into that at all. That's just too Looney Tunes.
Hmm.
But out in Western Pennsylvania, there's all these Bigfoot researchers like Stan Gordon,
Yes.
and Stan Gordon documents all this stuff. And
Hmm.
he's the one who's pretty much, I think it brought it to the forefront about the connection between Bigfoot and saucers. And he would write, and he writes like in a folksy narrative. Like, for example, who have all these examples of sightings. Like, for example, Farmer and Mrs. Brown went out to the barn at 6 o'clock in the evening to feed Bessie the cow, and they saw this Bigfoot emerging from a flying saucer. So he
Hmm.
will give you the date, the place, the time, and all this stuff. And he just has one account after another
Hmm.
with Bigfoot and orbs, Bigfoot and flying saucers.
Hmm.
So there's something to it. What it is, I don't know. But I think my best guess, and again, as researchers, if that's what we are,
Yeah.
or maybe wordsmiths, maybe that's what we are, and we just try to pick the right word. But I
Sure.
think that with the Bigfoot and UFO sightings, I just think that there's something there, and I think that it's more of an interdimensional thing. I think that explains it more than anything else. Jacques Vallée
Mm.
was saying that it doesn't make sense to look at that extra terrestrial theory where the space brothers would come from one planet to ours. It would just take
Mm.
too much time, too much energy, too much propulsion, all that. And so he was talking about the interdimensional theory, and I think it works not only for UAPs but also for Bigfoot and cryptids. So I just think that that's
Mhm.
what they do. They shape shift through these dimensions. They use the wormhole or the bridge hole, that Einstein and Rosen talked about. And again, just a theory, but you take that space-time continuum, if I may, and
Mhm.
let's fold it in half, and then you just
Yeah.
go boom, and that's how you get there. So,
Mhm.
that's the theory. Again, a theory, but give
Mhm.
me another theory that's as workable, that's as plausible. I mean, we don't really have that many, you know.
Mhm.
And when you talk about quantum physics and string theories, I mean, that gets pretty crazy fast. I mean, you're talking about, we're talking about number 10, with string theories when we haven't been able to explain 1, 2, and 3. So I just think that, we're
Mhm.
getting a little bit, I mean, and again, I can't explain it, and I'd be the last one to try, but,
Mhm.
I've been trying to read this thing about string theory and understanding it, but my understanding is if you understand it, you'll know everything. So that's,
Right. No, like I say, it's
so
one of those things. Half
yeah, so it's a
half the
happy
the
thing.
fun is the challenge of
Yeah,
trying to figure out.
yeah,
That's part of the whole process. I mean, I love it, the theory even of USOs, because there's so many
yeah,
parts of the oceans that we don't even go near.
yeah,
And there allegedly are all kinds of, like, bases down there. We know there are bases there. Some people will tell you there's, cities down there that are so far
mm,
down that, you know, there could be whole races of beings that have been there all this time,
yeah,
right? Because nobody's going to go and explore. They're going to be
yeah,
left alone
yeah.
because we
There,
just can't get down that far.
yeah, there was an interesting event that happened in January of this year. It was an iceberg. It was called designated A84, and
Hmm.
what happened was this iceberg, about the size of Chicago, peeled off in the Antarctic. So there were oceanographers that were about a mile away. So
Hmm.
they went over there and they had cameras, they had underground cameras, and it was called Sebastian. So they sent this underground camera there to see what they would find. Now, this is like maybe, I think it was 500-foot thick ice that had been there, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of years, who knows?
Hmm.
But they went underneath it with this robot, and they were able to find sea creatures there. I mean, some
Yes.
things that were really weird, like jellyfish that were larger than we normally would see, but a
Hmm.
lot of things. And they were trying to figure out how they were kept alive. Because typically you would have the sunshine and you would have these nutrients that would come down. But it seemed like in that place where they were looking, the nutrients couldn't get there. So they were thinking just maybe there was another type of life form or another type of maybe energy source or life source that was feeding these creatures that were there. So that
Hmm.
was December of this year, and it was A84, potato-shaped iceberg the size of Chicago. So it was 19 miles by long by 11 miles wide,
That's
and then it
substantial.
started to just take off and float and break up.
Yeah.
But that was pretty. They happened to be there at the right time, at the right place at the right time. So,
Yes.
you know,
Gotta love when that happens.
yeah,
I've got
serendipity.
yeah, absolutely. Riders Hello says, I have exotic metal from Holland and Air Force Base, early 80s. My dad worked on a special project there. Then in Utah, other people snatched pieces. Also, this metal does not appear on the periodic table
Oh,
as it was tested.
okay.
And it says, and now he now contracts for Northrop Grumman, and said, we have advanced over 100 years since the early 80s tech wise.
Okay.
Crazy,
Huh.
right?
Real crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially people that are in the know,
Yeah.
you know, not all of
Oh,
us are.
many of us aren't need to know. We're not. We don't need to
There we
know.
go again. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't need to know. There we're doing that thing again. So
Yeah. But when you take a look at the technology, I mean, it's just rapid. I mean, the
mhm.
way things are changing, just
Yes.
decade upon decade. I mean,
Yes.
new, fast. I mean,
Yes, it's true. It's true. But I mean, I think everything changed, with Roswell. Everything changed after that. And
hmm
even though there have been sightings, I mean, there are documented sightings in the United States going back to the 1600s, at least, like documented.
hmm
So it's just like, kind of know they've always been there. So why, all of a sudden there's this big game changer with Roswell? Yet
yeah,
even wartime, I mean, even
yeah,
even Hitler had his hand in that.
yeah.
This
The
is even
time machine.
before.
Well, and that was
Yeah,
Kecksburg.
yeah,
Supposedly, Die Glock was the bell-shaped
yeah, the clock,
time
that's right.
machine that landed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania in December of 1965, I believe.
Wow.
And the latest theory is that it was a Nazi time travel device. I think Kecksburg has more authenticity than does Roswell. And
Mm.
the reason for that, with Roswell, we didn't hear about this until something like 33 years later, when Charles Moore, and I think was it Berlitz, and I forget who else, Stanton Freeman, who did a lot of the legwork, but they wrote the Roswell incident. But that was 33 years after the fact. It was like interviewing these people 33 years later,
Mm.
as opposed to Kecksburg, where they had people that were immediately
Mm.
interviewed and gave their narrative, and they immediately went after the information from the Freedom of Information Act, which we found out that a lot of that data was missing from Kecksburg, or a lot of it was redacted. So I don't
Mm.
know why that would be. Again, what came down there? It could have been one of ours. It could have
Mm.
been Venus probe from the Soviet Union. It could have been maybe a time travel device from Nazi Germany. I mean, who knows? But
Mhm.
there's we're not quite sure. And but as far as I know, I think those are the three options. But
Mm.
I'm from Pennsylvania. I've been out to that Kecksburg festival that they have, the UFO festival, and just brings out a whole lot of people to
Mm.
celebrate what happened there. So it's pretty wild stuff.
It goes to show you the interest that's there, in, I think, the whole extraterrestrial contact and UFOs. You get people who really want nothing to do with it. Then you get others who are kind of like, what
Yeah,
if? Then you get those who are looking for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just get excited. I mean, it's just so much fun to just talk about research about flying saucers and cryptids and demonology and all that. It's just like, I mean, I love that realm. I love that aspect. And again, not as a crazy zealot, not as a true believer, but
Mm.
maybe as a skeptic looking for proof. That's all.
Mhm.
That's who I am. I mean,
Mhm.
um,
Yes.
I mean, I talk to people that they say they've seen Bigfoot. They get presents from Bigfoot.
Mhm.
Bigfoot's the teacher. They're the
Yes.
student.
Yes.
They get gifts. They talk telepathically. And again, I don't have that. I don't have that going for me. But I think maybe some people do. I think some people have an ability to tap into certain things. You know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I think if you're dealing on a quantum level with some cryptids, using Bigfoot as an example, since that's what we're talking about, is that they allegedly are very telepathic. They
mhm.
can use infrasound.
Yep.
Like they can project energy. I mean, we just recently saw a documentary where captured on film was a Bigfoot, and it just disappeared, and it was completely iridescent, almost like predator iridescent. And
Yeah.
the whole process was captured. I'm
Wow.
thinking, see right there, right there. That's that to me is and in the documentary, it wasn't a fudged
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
like a
Well,
fudged video
yeah.
again.
Well, with Bigfoot, they talk about rapid transport. They talk about bilocation, where you see the Bigfoot in front of you, then behind
Mhm.
you. They
Yeah.
say that it doesn't walk, it glides.
Mhm.
They talk about the eyes not reflecting light, but
Mhm.
radiating light.
Mhm.
And they talk about red eyes. But back home, and this I think is an authentic thing. My friend is the district magistrate. He used to be a police officer there in this little town, and he got a call late at night, and here this guy was letting his dog out. Uh, and here he saw this Bigfoot creature, maybe 11, 12 foot tall. But the older guy told the cop that he wasn't afraid, and the reason he wasn't afraid was because the Bigfoot had kind eyes. So that was
Mhm.
his story.
Mhm.
Um,
But some of them do. Some of them, have been befriended by humans or vice versa because they've been on their property where people leave them
right.
food or fruit or apples, and they come back and exchange little stones or
Yeah.
trinkets,
Yeah.
and they become very protective. Like, I mean, if you've ever listened to Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds, there's a language there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most incredible thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's just completely fascinating, and it's not the first time that I've heard this, where
Mhm.
Bigfoot has this dialogue that some people say, like, if you really listen to it, it almost sounds English. Like,
Okay.
it sounds like something very familiar.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I believe that, I mean, if you can work with, quantum, if you could be quantum, if you can work with telepathy, I don't think it would be really difficult, um, to pick up a language. I mean, some of these beings have been around going back to, just listen to the Native American oral history,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So,
It's
and
been
I've
it's
seen,
been around for thousands of years.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I'll tell you, some of them almost look human. When you look at their faces, I'm like, my God, this doesn't look like a primate but feature. Some of them do, but
Hmm.
I've seen some where they have a real human aspect. And some people think, again, going back, that there may have been some interbreeding with humans somewhere down the woodpile.
Yeah. Well, we know that there was interbreeding with Neanderthal, with the
Yes.
Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, and
Mhm.
we know that maybe 4% of us, I believe, have Neanderthal DNA.
Mhm.
I forget what yeah, I think that's what it is, but that's yeah.
Mhm.
But maybe with
Mhm.
Bigfoot, who knows?
There's a woman in Russia who mated with a Bigfoot, and they had a son. And I mean, you look at the son, and he lived within the community. He had, like, like a bit of the features that
Yeah.
shows that one of his parents were definitely something or someone unusual,
Uh-huh.
but he was a functional member of their society.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, there's so much out there, Max, and we could just do this, like, and keep going,
I
all
know.
kinds of stuff.
And I'm just curious, like, what was the final conclusion with the Chinese weather balloons of 2023 and the drone hysteria of 2024? I mean, um, did you have any take on that? Any conclusion? Because I know that there was just a whole lot of what I thought were unanswered questions.
Well, you know what?
And again, I think that was because the government, who had a lot of that information, wasn't sharing it with us deliberately, or was incapable of communicating that to us. Maybe they didn't know what was going on. But I mean, I followed this drone hysteria of 2024 uh,
Mhm,
intently, and and there was no conclusion, after all this was said and done. So
mhm.
I don't know.
Well, here's what I heard, for what it's worth, because it's just, you know, people feel compelled to tell me things, you know,
Yeah.
but also, I just read a lot. There was a consensus that was going around where these balloons were coming into the space. There was something, I don't know how many there were. Like, there wasn't just like a couple. Like, there were a lot of these things that had come in. And then within a short period of time, there were a lot of tornadoes
Uh-huh.
along the coast up there where they were appearing, where they were not common to have tornadoes in that area, and there was something like 30 of them that happened within, like, a few days. And I could be off on that timing
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
bit because it's secondhand information, but when you look at that, it's kind of like, well, is what were these balloons doing? Was it geoengineering, and I don't
Yeah.
imagine the government or military, if they feel like this is a security risk, they're not going to share that with us, and they feel that they shouldn't have to share that with us. It's security.
Right.
Right? So, okay, I appreciate that. As far as the
Mhm.
drones go, again, I thought I read something or I seen an interview with someone who basically said, no, this is kind of like a social experiment just to see. Some of these things are big as cars. And it's very specified as to who can afford to have drones that big,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, again, sort of one of these social experiments coming in, and people were finding this sort of, like, they call it whatever kind of dust it was, and it was going into their pet bowls, and they were showing it. There are videos all over the place of this
Mhm.
stuff. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it just stopped. Like everything seemed to be happening in New Jersey. Besides that,
Yeah.
like all of these things were going on in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it, just as fast as it all happened, it just went away.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the theories started to come up. I know the one guy that was the manufacturer of the drones claimed that terrorists took a bomb out of Ukraine, a nuclear bomb, and
Mm.
brought it to Jersey, and that was the American government was sending drones over there looking for that heat signature. That was one thing.
That was something in the news as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
I mean,
we had a lot of that conjecture.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we'll never really know, and it's just one of those things. If it has anything to do with national security, that's like, nope, that's just nothing that we have to disclose. You again need to know, and
yeah.
and it falls into that, you know. But
We started this conversation off with that need to know,
yeah, but it
philosophy,
seems
which,
to be the thing, doesn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah, I
You
think
know.
so. Yeah, yeah.
But let's move over to the Mexican alien corpses.
Yeah, Jaime Maussan. Yeah, when that happened in July of 2023, right after the congressional hearings here in the United States.
Hmm.
And Jaime Maussan is a ufologist, researcher, and a hoaxer. He's probably like one of the biggest hoaxers in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
But and he's been called that, and he's been caught numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
But this last time, he said that he found these corpses from Peru, and he brought them there in front of the in Mexico City, in front of the Congress and the Congress, and he refused to let the scientific community take a look at them. Now, what we do in the scientific community is you take a look at something and then you try to replicate, that. So that's, for example, like when we went up to the moon in '69, we brought back moon rocks. So we were able to go and divvy those up, give them to scientists around the world so that they would be able to take a look at those rocks and come up with the same maybe chemical mineral analysis that we did, okay, just to make sure everybody was on the same page. So that's what they do in the scientific community. Jaime Maussan refused to do that. So that happened in 2023, and the scientific community just started to get really ballistic about this, and they called him out. And he said that, and they said that he was making a mockery out of the Mexican scientists. So he's done this before. He's had pictures of flying. He's almost like the equivalent to George Adamski in a sense. He's had pictures of flying saucers going over the soccer fields, and he's had these creatures that they thought were, or the bone structure that they thought were maybe llamas, with something else. So they're not exactly sure what he's doing, but I just heard his name again and he was added again, but he's a con artist. He's bad for the, UFO community, and he needs to be called out because he's making fools out of us. But, I guess in a sense he keeps us on our toes, but
yeah, I thought I read that they had tested those again and said no, that they were not fraud.
Oh, okay.
But again, I don't know, because things just sort of come across my desk, and apparently the government was standing behind them. If we're talking about the same ones, which I think we might be.
Yeah, I think we might be. Yeah, he had, I think it was 2 alien corpses, the big heads and the big eyes and everything, that were inside these glass enclosures.
Yeah.
And those pictures are all over the place. But he showed that in front of the Mexican Congress.
Yeah.
And this was right after the American UFO hearing, which, there was a lot of interest in that. So, he followed in that wake. But, well, I'm convinced maybe, I'll do further research. Maybe Jaime Maussan is an honorable guy. And
I don't know. Might just be the guy that, trying to redeem himself, or is the guys trying to pull one over on you or not? Maybe figure, can I get a couple of bucks for this? Like, who knows? I don't know what drives people to want to try. I mean, aside from attention and hopes of getting getting something. But if you're known to be a hoaxer, you think maybe you just tread a little cautiously,
Yeah. Yeah, he has that reputation. He doesn't have a good reputation. So,
Mhm.
and then he invited I think it was one of the pilots that testified at the American congressional hearings in July of 2023,
Mhm.
and this person felt that he was being used, that he was being set up by Jaime Maussan, who was invited there to the stage, to
Mhm.
present at the same time. So he spoke out against that, the following days. And I forget what his name was, but he was one of the might have been Graves. I think that name comes to me. Ryan Graves, maybe. I forgot. But
Mhm.
and again, with these congressional hearings, it's a lot of people that either worked for special secret government organizations,
Mhm.
or the pilots that actually saw these things or took videos of them. So, we had some people there that, were credible people.
Mhm.
But the first congressional hearings, with Grush, and then the second one with Lyle Alexander, and then the third one that they just had, I think it was September of this year. I mean, it pretty much was the same song and dance, that the government knows something, that there's no transparency, that we want to find out what it is. I mean, that's
Mhm.
pretty much what it is, but nothing concrete. Nothing concrete. And again, this is 3 years worth of these hearings. I had written letters to all those congressmen that were involved in this back in 2023, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Well, he was I think a senator back then from Florida. He wrote a letter back. I was saying, let's encourage David Grish to go and show us cards. What do you know? Just tell us what you know. And
Mhm.
then at that point, he became Secretary of State, Rubio. So,
Mhm.
I lost my contact, but I think I
Mhm.
need to do that again. And I think that we all should, write letters to your Congress people and just see if there's any information that they could give us.
So I have to ask. I mean, everybody's got one of these, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
got one of these. People disclosure has been going on for such a long time. Experiencers have tried to come forward with information. You hear if you really dig, you'll find the information. Example, even the old Jackie Gleason story
Oh,
with
yeah. Right.
President Nixon,
He
right?
was a
Like,
believer. Yeah. Uh-huh.
right, right
Yeah.
there. He like that's a pretty much a form of disclosure. There's been so many stories out there and so much documentation. Why do you feel we absolutely, and this is a question I ask everybody who's really involved in paying attention to um, the whole disclosure thing. Why does it matter if the US discloses or not, when there's all this other information floating around? Like, we kind of know they're there.
Well, we're human beings, and by nature, we're curious.
Hmm.
So that's one thing, where we're trying to find the answer. We're trying to find that holy grail or climb the mountain.
Yeah.
Um, I think curiosity is the best way to go and control fear.
Hmm.
So you just go and you look behind that door, you look behind that under the
Hmm.
bed, just to
Hmm.
find what's there. So I think that this is what not all of us, but a lot of us do. We're on
Yeah.
that quest. We're looking. We're on this journey. We don't know where it's going to take us. We don't know what we're going to find. But along the way, I meet wonderful people like you, and
Thank you.
you just let me know. You know what? You're heading in the right direction. Keep it going. You
Yeah.
just that validation, that affirmation. That's all that we seek, and that's probably the best
Hmm.
that we could do. I mean, what else can you do for me other than
Hmm.
slap me on the back and say, you're heading the right way? So,
Attaboy.
so, so,
Yeah, that's good.
so I think
Yeah.
on that journey, we're accompanied by, and this is kind of bizarre, but I believe this. I think guardian angels, ancestors, spirit guides, all that, and all that which is in our head that keeps us going, so again, I think we're a composite,
Mhm.
Jung's collective unconsciousness, there's residue from the past, we're connected to our ancestors, and again, everything's everything, the vibration, the whole thing,
Mhm.
we're not separated by much, but
Mhm.
that's the way I think it is. But I think that it's a great question. Like, one question is, why do people look for Bigfoot? Well, because of that curiosity, that fascination, that need to know,
Mhm.
what's behind the curtain,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
figure things out. I mean, when you take a look at Newton's theory of gravity, of motion, and how he figured that out, it's amazing. I mean, who does that? And again, I can't explain it and walk anybody through it, but that
Mhm.
had to be just
Mhm.
a magical
Mhm.
example of cognition and brain power and what we can do. And the thing that we need to know is that humans, Homo sapiens, are, we rule this earth because we have more DNA than our fellow animals that are on the thing. And that means we have more DNA that goes into cognition and spirituality. So we are more spiritual and we're more cognitive. And, I remember I was talking about this, I was doing a presentation, and somebody said, well, there's animals that can do sign, they could do language, and they can use tools, they can do other stuff. Well, they don't rule the earth, and they don't drive F-150s, and they don't fly planes, but we do. And I mean, so
Mhm.
we're more accomplished, we've evolved more because we have that DNA. And again, with that DNA, I think we have an ability, we have psychic abilities that can manifest, but only if we do our due diligence, if we
Mhm.
do the work, and that means prayer and meditation, and going into that cave
Mhm.
that you mentioned, and
Oh, Da Vinci?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and finding whatever it is,
Mhm.
that
Yes.
what was the thing that uh, Helena Blavatsky and Edgar Casey was after? What's
The Akashic records.
yeah, Akashic records? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I think there's records, there's file cabinets, there's something there that
Mm.
we can access, but it takes work. You don't just do that. This is something
Mhm.
you can develop, that just like you can develop a certain,
Mhm.
intuition. And even with, I'm a former psychologist. We talk about empathy,
Mm.
and some people don't have empathy because they just think about themselves, they're narcissistic, and they could care less about you. But you can develop empathy.
Mhm.
It could be a learned skill. So
Mhm.
I think with some of these things, I think that we can learn and train ourselves. But I think it's difficult because if you're working a 9 to 5 job, and if you're dealing with the commute and the white noise and everything else, the commercials, I mean, it's
Mhm.
difficult, if not impossible. You have to be in the right setting. Um, I did want to throw this in. I know I'm rambling a bit, but we were talking
It's
about.
your show. Go ahead. I'm so long for
Okay.
the ride. Don't mind me.
The Maxim Furek. Okay. Beyond the outer realm, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Woohoo.
But the back home, they have a thing called the art of floating, and it's a sensory deprivation tank that was developed by John, not Keel, who's the guy that experimented with LSD. John, and he did the thing with the dolphins. John
Right.
Lilly. So
Yeah.
you go into this thing, you take off your clothes, you lay in this thing. It's like a foot and a half of Epsom salts, and you float there. You don't
Mm.
sink, you float. You put
Yeah.
little plugs in your ears. They close the door. It's pitch black. You don't hear anything. And then you go into different states. And again, it's altered states of consciousness. It's getting high without drugs. And after you get over the fear of claustrophobia, it's like it's a mother, after you do that. And then
Mhm.
you get into, it's kind of neat, but you get into different, like alpha, beta, I don't know, the different brain states, brain waves.
Mhm.
And I've done it maybe 5, 6 times. And the first time I did, I was petrified, but I thought, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And then and then you don't, I'm thinking I'm going to fall asleep or, pass out and sink. And you don't sink. You did that Epsom salt. It's more density than in I think the Red Sea or the Dead Sea. And, but anyway, it's another way of tapping into something in like an altered state. Yeah, an altered state of ufology. So that's something that I really love doing. And I don't know what it does for me, but after that, it's just peaceful. You have a cup of tea, you're out there in the garden, everything's so right. So right. But I mean, that's like just
I think it's all about connection, and whatever, when you get into those states, deep meditation or other methods, I think it's sort of a easy way to awakening, to connections, to awareness, and tapping into the collective consciousness. You do that, and it's amazing if you can tap into that consciousness. You want to talk about hearing things and picking up on things. You can test that theory.
Yeah.
I've done it several times, just little experiments, like saying like really obscure words. Like I think I did one time. It was like swell, because nobody says swell anymore, right? and I just threw it in there. Or sometimes let's just like a song that you haven't heard in a while. All of a sudden, I start hearing this song is like all over the place. Like I think just by putting it out there, because when I did swell, all of a sudden I started seeing it like all over the place online. I'm going, what? That worked. So it's such an easy thing to do. But if you put positive things out there, instead of fear-based or negativity based, I think, people start picking up on that, and you start seeing a difference.
Yeah, I think that's the way to be positive. And I think with I like talking about creativity, but with success, I think to be successful, you got to keep on doing what you're doing. And then you wait for the missing ingredient, which is luck, fate, karma, serendipity, whatever. You need that. I mean, it's rare for any one of us to hit it out of the park. I think we need people to open up doors and help us, people that love our light and love our energies, like the way we articulate and all that, aren't put off by us or feel threatened by us, or, I mean, that are on the same groove, the same vibration. So I think it's that. But I think that the key is really that other ingredient, and it doesn't happen with everybody. I mean, we're there waiting for the bus. We're there at the bus stop waiting for the magic bus to come in, and
put you on the short buses, like it's not gonna work.
And with hallucinogens and that. Johns Hopkins University was in Baltimore was doing a study years ago on using psilocybin with seniors to unlock the key to spirituality. And they claim that, when you're in a spiritual mode, prayer and meditation, whatever that is, that there's a certain chemical, whatever. And they thought that psilocybin could release that. And I remember we were there in Baltimore for a wedding, and we were walking through Johns Hopkins, and I asked the person about that, and they said, they were doing that. I forget, I think it was at the library, but anyway, interesting stuff.
It is interesting stuff, but you can do it with music too.
Yeah.
Right. Do you ever remember that video that was going around, Maxim, of an older woman with Alzheimer's, and she used to be a ballerina, and she was completely like, she could not communicate at all, and they put on one of the songs that she used to dance to, and she started doing all the motions, and she was so graceful, but she couldn't move otherwise. It's just this connection that she just felt it. And I was just like, I was so moved by that. I thought, wow, like the brain's a funny thing. It really is.
Yeah. I remember as a young man, even as a teenager, I'd come home, play some records, and then as a kid, I would play the records and go out and play. But I mean, music was always just so important. I mean, it still is.
It is.
It is.
It's a universal language.
It is, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Did you ever see Burton Cummings?
No, but he was a best friend of a good friend of mine for a long
really? Okay.
time. Yeah.
Stand tall, man. He was so cool, so good.
Yeah. Many good artists, good artists out there who just knew how to just touch on
it. Mentioned because he was Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah. So your book, I've got your website there. I've got a link to Amazon as well. Hello. And I've got the write-up, everything on where to find
it. Yeah, there it is. www.maximfurek.com. Yeah. If
there
any
it
of
is.
your listeners, there it is. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Any of your listeners were interested in checking out my website and seeing some of the books, or even getting a autographed copy, you could contact me through my website. And that would be great, and again, I always encourage listeners to support local libraries, bookstores, podcasters, and authors. I mean, just do that. It's us versus the corporations, and the only way we compete is with the help and support of you folks.
Yes. And what are you hoping people are going to get out of this book specifically?
Well, as you hit the nail on the head right at the beginning, that the saucers have always been there with us. We have always seen things up in the sky, looking up in the sky, and we have always tried to figure out what it is. Again, in the early days, people were punished for their beliefs. If you didn't believe in the dogma, the mantra of the church and state. And I mentioned Copernicus and Galileo and Bruno, who was burned at the stake. But there's been other people, and then now people, are even though there's a whistleblower, what decree or a whistleblower law that allows you to step forward and say things without fear of being intimidated or punished. I mean, I think people are still a bit reluctant to do that. So
I agree.
So that's that. But the book tells the story. I think that I think Flying Saucer Esoteric should be in everybody's library. It's a wonderful reference book that shows the chronology of the flying saucers, that shows that it's been with us certainly before 1947 and Roswell and Kenneth Arnold, and after, and not only in science, but in popular culture. It's part of us. Flying saucers are part of our cultural fabric. You either like them or you don't, and it's pretty much the same with Bigfoot. And again, that's why we enjoy talking about these subjects, just searching and trying to find answers. And I don't know, it's, every time I get on a podcast, it seems to, the scope gets a little bit wider. You have a finite scope, like from here to here. But when you talk to somebody like you're good with that, to open up the scope to make it a little wider and more more colorful and more
It's just like a gentle persuasion.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
Why don't we just go with that?
That's good.
Yeah, some people just have their ways of being a little gently persuasive.
Well, that's the way it is. You don't use confrontation. I mean, confrontation doesn't work, and that was one of the things that we always talked about in therapy. You don't push back. You agree. You go along with this, and then, but you use things like, was there ever a time in your life when you felt at peace and you were calm? Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, when was that? Tell me about that. Well, that's when I wasn't hitting the booze and starting to crack and all this. I mean, or you use a thing called the cognitive dissonance, where you introduce something and what happens is, I mean, we have the ability to figure things out. So you introduce that little piece of sand in the in the brain or whatever, and you'll figure out a way to make it good, to make it go away, to resolve it. Because we do that. The psyche strives for balance and homeostasis. So that's our best place, being there, not not crazy, jacked up, afraid.
It's a power of suggestion.
It's that as well.
It's gentle because you're still giving the option. You're still
Yeah.
giving the choice.
Yeah.
I love that. So what do you have coming up? What do you have coming up? Anything fun? Any conferences? Any travel, research, another book?
Well, we're going to be down here in Florida for 6 months. So, I'll tell you what's new and improved. I just got myself a wetsuit.
Ooh.
And what I want to do is I want to do cold water swimming. Now, we have a community pool, but when it's like, say, oh God, in the summertime, it's like maybe in the 80s. It's great. But now in the say December, January, it's going to get colder, and I think I could swim in that if it's like in the 70s or maybe 60s. But I have the wetsuit. I'm going to do that, and that's my challenge. I got the wetsuit. I just got it today, and it fits. And I'm going to be trying cold water swimming, which actually, I'm doing it for the challenge, but it's supposed to be good for circulation, metabolism, depression. And with the depression, you're sort of cold in that, and your body releases the endorphins. It's synthetic morphine. So you're getting high and swimming in the.
I commend you for it.
Well, I didn't do it yet, so.
Living up north in northern Canada, my friends and I were some of the first ones into, we grew up on the lake. In March, as soon as the snow started to melt, we would be swimming. And we can talk about cold when the rest of when the rest of the lake is still all ice, but it's just a shoreline.
And you did it without a wetsuit too, right?
I did it without a wetsuit because we were freaking tough up there.
Yeah.
But the secret was there was a sauna nearby, so we cheated just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? Thank you so much for coming on. And you're back on in January because we're going to do the Smurl haunting.
Yeah.
We're going for it again.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We're going to just beat out the elements.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for everything. Love your program. Love you. You've been a great friend and supporter. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to doing this again. So
enjoy
the holidays.
Have a good Christmas. Yes.
You as well.
I will see you in January with the Smurl haunting.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you.
Now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ben.
Well, everyone, thank you all for tuning in to The Outer Realm. We have been broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network at 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM New Orleans. Thanks to our sponsors, being Folgers Coffee, Justin Snickers, Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you all so very much. Tuesday on Beyond the Outer Realm welcomes the return of another good friend, Mark Ollie, and we're taking a deep dive into Christmas from ancient times to current, and there's so much fun stuff in there. We're going to have a blast. So from an archaeologist point of view and folklorist, Mark is going to definitely have some great info for us, as always. Wednesday, as we can see, C.L. Thomas, who is in the chat, fellow UPR and host of the Gateway Podcast, is going to be joining me. And we're going to be getting into high strangeness in the Mojave Desert. Yep, it's a thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thursday welcomes for the first time Polly Rotterman. You've seen her in the chat. She is a fellow ET experiencer. Several, actually. And she's going to be sharing her journey with us. And I cannot wait to have her on. So thank you to everyone who promotes up all of our shows. We appreciate you so very much. Have yourselves a terrific night, and we shall see you all tomorrow. Or actually, no, we'll see you all on Tuesday. Where am I? I'm thinking it's Wednesday. Anyway, it's time. The end of my week. Anyway, love you all. See you next week on Tuesday. Good night.